the Union soldiers on the other side until more Union soldiers showed up behind them. And the slaughter over here was just terrible.
History tells us Abraham Lincoln's final triumph was neat, documented, and safely locked in black and white. But hidden in a forgotten attic for over a century was a photograph that shatters that illusion. A full-color image from 1865, something science says is impossible, shows Lincoln at Appomattox alongside a man who officially died days earlier. When experts zoom in, their confidence collapses, revealing stitched warnings tied to Lincoln's assassination. This isn't just lost history, it's buried truth fighting its way back. The attic that broke a century of silence. Every family has an attic, a place where old furniture goes to rot and memories fade into dust. Claire Donovan didn't expect anything more when she climbed the narrow wooden ladder into her family's ancestral home. The air was thick, stale, untouched for decades. Boxes sat exactly where they'd been left, like time itself had forgotten this space. Then she noticed the trunk. It was pushed into a corner, half hidden behind a broken wardrobe. The leather was cracked and darkened, the brass latches corroded with age. It wasn't decorative. It wasn't sentimental. It looked sealed with purpose. Inside the trunk were folded uniforms, brittle letters tied with string, and at the very bottom, beneath a false wooden panel, an album wrapped tightly in oilcloth. That detail mattered. Oilcloth wasn't used casually. It was meant to protect something from air, moisture, and light. Someone had gone out of their way to preserve what was inside. The album itself looked ordinary at first glance. Thick pages, faded portraits, soldiers staring stiffly into the camera, frozen forever in sepia tones. Claire flipped through several pages, already preparing to close it and move on. Then she turned one more page, and everything stopped. There, staring back at her, was Abraham Lincoln. Not ghostly, not washed out, but vividly alive. His black frock coat carried texture and depth. His skin held warmth. The blue and nearby uniforms looked shockingly real. Sunlight appeared to glint naturally off buttons and brass. Written beneath the image in neat script were the words, Appomattox Courthouse, April 9, 1865. Claire knew enough history to feel dread creep up her spine. Color photography didn't exist then, not like this. Not even close. This wasn't rare. It was impossible. And if this photo wasn't meant to exist, why was it hidden so carefully? And what else had been erased along with it? Color tech that broke reality. When Claire first laid that photograph on the polished table at the New York Historical Society, the reaction was almost insulting. Polite smiles, soft chuckles. The kind of professional skepticism reserved for people who don't know better. Hand-tinted, one archivist shrugged, already half bored. Victorian trickery. Acute illusion. And honestly, that explanation made sense. 19th century photographers loved slapping watercolor over lifeless black and white prints. Usually, the lie gave itself away fast. Sloppy brushstrokes, muddy shading, pigment pooling where it shouldn't. But this image refused to crack. Under high-powered magnification, there were no strokes, no surface pigment at all. The color wasn't painted on. It was inside the paper. That's when the room went quiet. Scanners began to hum. Spectral imaging screens filled with data that made seasoned experts visibly uncomfortable. The reds reacted like organic beetroot dye. The blues behaved like indigo, ancient and plant-based. These pigments weren't cosmetic. They were chemically fused during exposure itself. Not decoration, not enhancement. Photochemical fusion that, according to every textbook ever written, should not exist for another 50 years. And the deeper they looked, the worse it got. Raman spectroscopy, high-level forensic wizardry, revealed gum Arabic binders, gold toning techniques, and vegetable dyes locked into the fibers with impossible stability, while every other photo from the 1860s had long since faded into yellowed ghosts. No modern contaminants, no synthetic residue, no fingerprints of fraud. One historian reportedly muttered, barely audible, "This shouldn't be here." Because if the photograph was real, and all signs screamed that it was, then someone in 1865 had access to experimental color technology powerful enough to rewrite the entire history of photography. Technology that never went public. Technology someone clearly wanted buried. Whispers exploded. Was this Levi Hill's infamous holotype, that scandalous heliochrony scheme mocked as a hoax, until Hill mysteriously died in early 1865, allegedly poisoned by his own chemical experiments? Or did Abraham Lincoln himself, known tech geek obsessed with telegraphs and innovation, secretly bankroll a one-off forbidden process? A dusty journal from an assistant to war photographer Timothy O'Sullivan hinted at a chromatic plate commissioned privately by the president, never patented, never repeated. A single, legacy-defining image meant for the future alone, preserved perfectly inside an oilcloth-wrapped album, hidden from light like a vampire dodging dawn. But as astonishing as the technology was, it wasn't the chemistry that froze the room. It was the third man in the frame, standing calmly between Lincoln and Ulysses S. Grant. A uniformed ghost who didn't belong there at all. So who was he? And why did history pretend he never existed? The phantom between the legends, the man who died before the photo was taken. Claire didn't need facial recognition software or a historian's confirmation. The moment she saw the man in the photograph, her stomach dropped. She knew that face. William Donovan, her great-great-grandfather. Growing up, his portrait had always been there, quietly haunting family homes, accompanied by vague explanations that never quite satisfied. A medic, a soldier, lost in the war. The official records seemed to close the case neatly. William Donovan, 104th New York Infantry. Role, medic. Status, missing in action. April 6, 1865, 3 days before Appomattox. According to history, he vanished during a minor skirmish amid the chaos of the war's final collapse. No body, no witnesses, just silence. Except the photograph refused to cooperate. There he was on April 9, alive, composed, and positioned closer to Abraham Lincoln than most cabinet members ever stood, sandwiched between the president and Ulysses S. Grant, like he belonged there. That contradiction alone should have shattered the record, but it only got stranger. When historians dug into the archives, pages were missing. Names were violently scratched out, ink gouging through paper, as if someone wanted to make sure nothing could ever be read again. Mentions of Donovan stopped abruptly, mid-thread, as though he'd been cut from the narrative on purpose. Then came the smoking gun, a misfiled, barely legible War Department memo scribbled in haste. WD moved to shadow post per Al's request, not to be logged. Al wasn't speculation. It was the private shorthand used by Lincoln's inner circle, men like John Hay and Ward Hill Lamon. Donovan hadn't died. He'd been reassigned, pulled into a shadow post, so secret it required total erasure. And suddenly, the optics made chilling sense. A medic was the perfect ghost, unranked, unremarkable, able to move freely through camps, headquarters, and chaos without raising eyebrows. The 104th New York was knee-deep in Virginia mud as Richmond fell, paperwork burning, intelligence shredded in a literal paper tornado. Donovan disappeared at the exact moment Lincoln was walking through the ruins of the Confederate White House, scooping up dangerous secrets. This wasn't random loss, it was surgical removal. A loyal nobody planted where generals couldn't pry. History scrubbed him into vapor, but the question lingered like a loaded gun. What role was so dangerous, so classified, that it required a man to officially die before history's most famous photograph was even taken? Lincoln's shadow guard, the protection that wasn't supposed to exist. When forensic teams digitally peeled back the layers of William Donovan's uniform, the truth didn't announce itself loudly. It whispered. The cut of the coat was wrong, the stitching heavier than regulation. And then, at a very specific angle, beneath a fold of wool, it appeared, a small circular patch stitched in faded gold thread. 3 letters, P.E.C. No Union Uniform Registry listed it. No quartermaster logs acknowledged it. Weeks of obsessive archival digging finally unearthed the phrase buried in obscure escort notes and half-burned documents. Presidential Escort Committee, a group that officially did not exist. This wasn't the Secret Service. That wouldn't even be tasked with presidential protection for decades. This was something quieter, personal, and far more dangerous. The PEC appears to have been Abraham Lincoln's private response to a Capitol crawling with Confederate sympathizers, intelligence leaks, and unreliable guards. Even Lincoln's own security detail worried him. Men like Ward Hill Lamon openly warned that the president was one careless moment away from assassination. So Lincoln bypassed the chain of command entirely and built his own shadow network: medics, couriers, clerks, men without rank or ambition who could move unnoticed through camps, parades, and checkpoints. They answered to no general, only Lincoln. That rogue PEC patch functioned like a silent VIP pass, granting access where no one thought to question a nobody. These men didn't chase glory. No promotions, no rosters, no medals. They operated off the books, slipping through Richmond resistance, monitoring suspicious actors, including whispers tied to John Wilkes Booth's orbit, and quietly escorting the president through danger zones while official guards like John Parker notoriously dropped the ball. The irony cuts deep. On April 14, 1865, the very day Lincoln was assassinated, he signed legislation creating the Secret Service, though only to combat counterfeiting, not protect his life. That makes the PEC America's original, unacknowledged presidential security force. But secrecy has a fatal flaw. When Lincoln was shot, historians saw only failure. No guards, no defense. A shocking lapse. Now we know the truth wasn't absence. It was invisibility. Warnings passed through shadows. Alerts never meant for public record. And somewhere beneath Donovan's lapel, stitched into wool, meant never to be examined, lurked something even colder than a badge, a message hinting that the PEC knew more than history ever admitted. If this secret guard existed, what warning did they see coming? And why did it end in tragedy anyway? The countdown sewn into silence. When hyperspectral imaging finally cracked open William Donovan's uniform, the discovery landed like a punch to the chest. Beneath his lapel, stitched into the lining with thread invisible under normal light, was a message so clinical it was terrifying. Short, precise, final. Target verified. Stand until April 14th, April 14, 1865, the exact night Abraham Lincoln was assassinated at Ford's Theater. This wasn't symbolism or poetic warning. It was an operational language. Cold, bureaucratic, lethal. Target verified implies surveillance. Confirmation, eyes locked on someone of interest. Stand until implies a countdown, not an ongoing mission. A deadline, a stop date. Historians immediately split into camps. Was Lincoln the target, or was he the asset? Was the PEC guarding him, or monitoring the man who would kill him? The phrasing refused to clarify, but the implications were explosive. Lab technicians ran the fabric through every test imaginable. No modern ink, no synthetic thread, no contamination. The stitching reacted exactly like 19th century materials should, locking the message firmly in its time. This wasn't a prank or later forgery. It was intelligence encoded directly into clothing, a human data vault walking through history. Some theorists believe the PEC had identified John Wilkes Booth and his circle, but lacked authorization to intervene. Others whispered darker possibilities: internal conflict, political hesitation, or orders overridden at the last possible moment. Stand until may have meant protect or stand down. And once April 14 arrived, the watch ended. Lincoln's death then wasn't a bolt from the blue. It was anticipated, monitored, timed. And Donovan, bearing that stitched warning, disappeared immediately afterward, his missing status functioning like a permanent gag order. Suddenly, a chilling family warning passed down through generations snapped into focus. If you ever find the photograph with the chair, burn it. Because that chair wasn't furniture. It was proof that someone knew the clock was ticking, and someone decided when it would stop. The empty chair that was never meant to be seen. Tucked among the artifacts in the attic trunk was a letter written long after the war. Its ink, steadier than its message, deserved to be. The handwriting was unmistakable. William Donovan's. No flourish, no explanation. Just a single, bone-cold instruction. If you ever find the photograph with the chair, burn it. For decades, the warning made no sense. It sounded superstitious, paranoid. Until Claire looked again at the Appomattox photograph and finally saw what everyone else had missed. In the background, just behind Lincoln and Grant, sat a single empty wooden chair, unoccupied, centered, impossible to ignore once noticed. In 19th century symbolism, an empty chair often represented death, a place reserved for someone who would never return. But in the context of Lincoln's final days, the meaning darkened. That chair may have symbolized the presidency itself. Or worse, the exact moment Lincoln would leave it forever. Donovan lived the rest of his life as a man erased. No pension, no commendation, no official service record to speak of. He survived, but only as a ghost. The photograph was proof that his disappearance was engineered, not accidental. And proof, in that world, was lethal. Burning the photo wasn't superstition, it was survival. A way to protect a family from reprisals, from secrets that still had teeth, from power structures that preferred silence over reckoning. The warning became a taboo, passed down like a cursed heirloom, turning attic searches into acts of quiet terror. Some historians now whisper that the chair wasn't just symbolic. It marked an operational focal point, a silent seat for off-books guardians who were never meant to be acknowledged. A reminder of a failure too dangerous to document. Like so many tragedies clustered in April 1865, it was buried under collective amnesia. Donovan carried that weight alone, a hero condemned to fade, which raises the final, unsettling question. Did William choose his own disappearance, or was it a final order signed by the president himself? Allow it, the order for a man to vanish. The final revelation wasn't hidden in plain sight. It was buried with intent, sewn into the silk lining of the photo album like a secret never meant to be found. A thin slip of paper, fragile, personal, written in Abraham Lincoln's unmistakable hand. No formal address, no official seal, just one word at the top: William. The message that followed wasn't praise or gratitude. It was something far heavier. The truth is seldom of interest to those who need it most, Lincoln wrote. Stand where they do not expect you, watch who you must, and if history forgets you, allow it. The phrasing was intimate, almost mournful, yet unmistakably final. This wasn't a thank you note to a loyal subordinate. It was a command, a release. Lincoln understood that the nation he was trying to stitch back together couldn't survive every truth laid bare. Some men would have to disappear so the larger story could move forward. Some sacrifices would be made in silence. Donovan wasn't chosen to draw a sword or make speeches. He was chosen to remain visible while being erased, to exist in the margins where danger hid. The letter reframed everything: the experimental color photograph, the shadow post, the coded warning stitched into wool. None of it was accidental. It was strategy. Lincoln, already haunted by premonitions of his own death, built a silent shield for a war that wouldn't be fought with muskets. Allow it wasn't resignation. It was permission to vanish without shame, a heavier burden than any medal. William Donovan obeyed. He lived without recognition, pension, or proof, carrying a truth he was ordered never to speak, until now. Because history has a way of leaking its ghosts back into the light. Claire's discovery didn't just resurrect a forgotten man. It cracked open a hidden chapter of the Civil War that refuses to stay buried. And if one silent guardian has stepped back into the frame, how many more are still standing exactly where they were told to, waiting in the shadows? When history blinks first. What began as a dusty attic discovery has become something far more unsettling than a technological curiosity. That 100-year-old Civil War photograph is not just an anomaly. It's a rupture in the official narrative of the American presidency. A full-color image from 1865 should not exist. A medic declared missing in action should not be standing shoulder to shoulder with Abraham Lincoln. And a spectral message reading, "Target verified," should not be stitched into the uniform of a man history insists never mattered. Yet all of it points to the same conclusion. In Lincoln's final days, a clandestine operation was quietly at work. William Donovan was not a forgotten casualty. He was a silent guardian, a member of the unacknowledged Presidential Escort Committee, ordered into invisibility by the very man he was sworn to protect. This photograph doesn't just document history. It exposes how carefully that history was edited. It reminds us that the past isn't a clean list of dates and names, but a living narrative shaped by power, fear, and deliberate erasure. As experts lean closer to the image, their confident skepticism drains away, replaced by something far more uncomfortable, the realization that some secrets weren't lost over time. They were buried. And as Lincoln himself warned, the truth is often of little interest to those who need it most. Yet the legacy of William Donovan refused to stay hidden. Preserved through the so-called Donovan process and resurrected by the courage of his descendants, a missing chapter of America's story has finally clawed its way back into view. This isn't just a photo. It's proof that history blinked first, that it chose silence over acknowledgement. And now, as the impossible image stares back at us in vivid color, one final, chilling question hangs in the air. How many other erased guardians are still hiding in plain sight, waiting for someone brave or curious enough to look closer? If all this made you question what you think you know, don't let it disappear again. Hit like, subscribe, and share this video. Because the more eyes that look closer, the harder it becomes for the truth to stay buried. And if you want more hidden histories, erased figures, and secrets that textbooks refuse to talk about, you should stay right here. Because somewhere out there, another forgotten guardian is still waiting to be seen.